Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
This podcast is proudly supported by Cooper's Ale House Jeps Cross and the ALH Group, Matt Hall from DR Kart South Australia, HandyPay, SA's leading personal lender, Patrizzi Course, and Tindo Solar, Australia's only solar panel manufacturer.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Negative Camber in the original studio.
Back at the kitchen table.
Back in the kitchen table, old school. And with us is our dear friend, Mr. DR Kart South Australia, Matt Hall.
Hello, everyone.
How are you, buddy? You alright?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you.
Yeah? How you?
That's
Right,
not what you were
but,
telling
you know.
us before.
Yeah.
Well, things happen.
We finally get you into the studio, man. Let's try to get you in the radio show, but the last time we did a gig, everything just turned to shit. We went into lockdown.
We nearly had corona.
It would have been actually quite scary.
Nah, it was alright. I felt quite safe.
Fair enough.
This doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's just the flu.
Yeah, so we at this time of the night we'd be live on air, but because of COVID restrictions, we were told by the studio we could only have one person in the studio, and unless they're a relative, which clearly you're not.
Well, we could have pretended.
We could have,
Yeah.
but then it would have been us manning the controls, and that was a nightmare.
Yeah.
So we've gone back to old school and dragged Matt with us. So, but man, you've been a supporter of the club and the team for a little while now. We're going probably about 12 months, I reckon. So, and as now Prez, thanks. I appreciate it. Loved it. Every minute of it so far. So, yeah, it's always good to bring Boy Wonder in. And you can start to spill the beans. So I wouldn't say talk about your secrets, but tell us a bit about yourself. Who is Matt Hall?
Who is Matt Hall?
Who is Matt Hall?
Mate, I don't know. No, look, yeah, I suppose I started karting when I was quite young.
What got you into it?
My old man.
Yeah.
Old man was racing with one of his mates. Unfortunately, he's passed away now, but yeah, they raced for a long time. Then I started, and Dad had to give it up when I got good.
When? I'm still waiting for that to happen. When did that happen?
Already.
I threw it out there. I was going to see if he challenged me, and he did, so well done.
He it didn't take you long to put the lure out there.
Yeah.
Oh God! So your dad still races at any stage, or he's completely gone?
No, he doesn't even get around the vintage stuff anymore.
No, I haven't seen
So-
Wombat at the track for a long time.
He's very busy with work, so unfortunately, but yeah.
Yeah. How'd you meet my esteemed colleague next to me at the track?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been mates for a long time now.
Yeah, we've raced each other for far out. It would be going on 20 years that we've raced each other now. So
Yeah.
I think it was when, Cadet 9 midgets, when it was called back then, we started racing against each other. I've still got a photo somewhere. I think it's at my mum's place of us two racing together at the old Barossa that we were just speaking about before. So yeah, been on the racetrack together for a long time.
Who's the better of the two?
Well,
Oh, the smile! Look at the grin.
it depends what day it is, you know. There's probably classes that Matt races better, and there's probably classes that I drive better. It's probably whoever turns up on the day. Whoever had the least busy Saturday night is probably the one that's going to win on Sunday.
What I'd say, I don't know. I mean, I'd never got to see you race in your heyday. I've seen you. I mean, you've driven my go-kart and you've driven Adams and stuff.
Yeah.
But I would have said, I mean, when you're racing tag 125, 99% of the time, no one can touch you. You're like not only you're like half a bullshit. You're you are half a second quicker per lap at Southerns than anyone else that races consistently. All right, even your own go-karts can't match you.
I don't race consistently though. I actually looked at my license the other day, and since 2018 to now, I've raced 9 times. So
That's 9 more times than I have.
definitely not very consistent. Not very consistent. So that's due to being too busy with helping everyone else, which is very enjoyable though.
Yeah.
So, I love taking especially the young lads and training them up, and now we've got one of the best in the country in Ruben Goodall, which I've trained. So I'm very proud of that.
Yep. Which is part of the reason why we got you on board as well, was to help us, and then eventually we'll help you. But it's that link with getting the kids on board, like the girls, for example, and then eventually getting all that sort of synergy going, where they can start to benefit from you guys, because we can talk about how the kart feels, but you guys know how to take it from B to A. Know what I mean?
Yeah. We know how to put your words into a setup and what you want to change, or what we think we can change to make your thoughts come to life.
Yeah. And the reality is that for us in our team, for example, our driving is at a level where you guys can still make the changes and we will drive according to that, not coming back saying, no, it didn't work, do it again. You know what I mean? So, but for you, mate, when did the change from driver to, I guess, distributor start, and what led you to that?
I think it was pretty much, there was only really 2 of us left driving DRs in the state, and the new importer took over in Chris and Paul, and they contacted me, I think purely because we were the only ones kicking around in them, and they gave us the dealership, and I sort of took it from there, and I started getting some young lads under the wing, and we took off. Really, we got a fair few out there.
Yeah.
And it's quite a good go-kart. So
Yeah.
I haven't driven a DR a couple of times. It's not a bad go-kart. That's the last time I raced properly. I drove a DR. It was before Matt took over, but yeah, they're not a bad go-kart.
Yeah. So was it always DR for you though, mate? Because were there other karts before, and then you've sort of gone on to DR and said, shit, I like this. It's good. Outside of obviously just that story. Were you previously an OTK boy or an Arrow or a Birrell or whatever?
Well, I actually had all main success in juniors in CRG. So this was a I always wanted to get back to a CRG branded go-kart, and when I found out this was, and I liked the feel of it, we jumped back into it. So
what, DR is actually almost like CRG effectively? Oh shit!
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, a few little changes in the front end, the way they set the front ends up of the go-kart, but other than that, it's, I'd say, 90% of CRG. About 95% of CRG.
Okay, so it's no different to say what OTK do with their Cosmics and X-Breeze and all that sort of stuff outside of the Tony karts.
Yeah, but they're all the same.
They're pretty well exactly the same, just painted a different colour.
Yeah.
Where at least in the DR versus CRG, there is some front end geometry, which is a little bit different between those two brands, but otherwise 95% the same.
Yeah, fair enough. Cool. And so what's your? I mean, you've driven a few of the DR lines now. What's probably your favourite kart and why? What makes it so good?
As in, what model is the favourite?
Yeah.
Like in the DR range?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
It really depends on the class. So, like, I've driven both the 30-32 and the 30 mil models.
For those that are playing at home, they're the tubing sort of width or like a thickness or diameter. Yeah. So the thicker, the stiffer.
Yeah. So, and I feel that they have their strengths in different weight classes. So.
Yep. So, and you normally just play in the tag 125, non-restricted, or you kind of sort of flirt between the two, don't you? Depending on.
I've only ever driven the restricted class once.
Yeah.
At Bolivar. Actually, really quite enjoyed driving on the Dunlop in the restricted class. So it was as I tried to race this class was just to get some knowledge about the tyre and about the actual class, so I could help customers. So I'll jump into different classes like I did in the 4-stroke class, and just to get a little bit of knowledge about that tyre and about the engine, how everything runs. So that's the reason I float between classes from time to time.
Yep. And your reputation in the pit lane is, in the time that I've been in karting, has kind of grown over the last sort of 12 months as now sort of the wizard of getting speed out of karts. And we saw it up close at the AKC event at Bolivar, where people were seeing the speed that Ruben's a talented kid, right? But your go-kart, spanned by yourself, was the quickest in tag by a fair margin, to a point where people coming to you individually by the end of the weekend saying, help, Yeah,
that's correct. But that just comes with experience. So, and I just followed the conditions to suit the setup throughout the weekend to keep us on top. Yeah.
Cool. So, and is it more, do you prefer the driving, or do you prefer being on the tools a bit more? What's your thing? Some people like working on the spanners more than actually driving. Others prefer driving. Some like both, I guess.
Yeah, I really enjoy being on the spanners and mentoring the young lads. It sort of gets to a point where you get the itch and you jump back in and you're like, all right, I've done that again. Cool. Now,
back to helping again.
Yeah, back to helping. So, and a lot of the time, I just don't get enough time to do like when I race, I don't get enough time to do it properly, I suppose, myself, because I'm also so busy, fixing, helping other competitors. So
and we've seen it sort of up close, where depending on the race weekend and depending on how the schedule is, right, there could be times when we're literally right next to each other and we barely see each other during the day, outside of, hey, how'd you go? Yep, good, right, we're gonna go, and away you go. But no, man, you're definitely forging that reputation within the pit lane in a great way, and that brand's now, that's probably the biggest I've seen the DR marquee set up now. Was at the Southerns meet that we just had, where you've sort of occupied a good 4 or 5 meters in length, if not more, like in terms of sort of being spread out with Cooper and the boys now too, which is good to see. Where there was far more prolific now with DR splashed on the front and all that sort of stuff as well. So whatever you're doing now, and in terms of how you've marketed the brand through results, and performance, is clearly working. And others have taken note and stuff as well. So props to you, my friend. Good to have you on.
Thank you.
Good to have you on our end. It's great.
Yeah, that's it.
I tell you what, your greatest achievement will be if you can make
coming on this podcast.
Well, yeah, okay, fair call. I like that.
Well, put it this way, I was a lot more nervous coming on the podcast than before I get in a go-kart for a final or something like that. So
I don't know. Were you more nervous going live on radio?
Yeah.
Where we could not afford to even slip up, like even just to say any sort of foul language, bad word. Whereas here, you can say whatever the fuck you want. You know what I mean?
I was pretty nervous. I've been at the front at many major meetings and gone into the final and sat in the go-kart and not been bothered. And last fortnight I was shitting bricks. So
oh man. Those first 15 minutes where we had to start talking the whole about the club again.
They were hard.
Shit.
Yeah, it was and then once we got it going, it was just like riding a bike. But it's just like driving the go-kart. Once you've been out of it for a little while, you still pick it up quite quickly. And you've seen it doesn't take me long to get back into it. And Matt's tested that as well. Yeah, one and a half sessions or a carby session, and you're back up to speed pretty quickly. So that's good fun.
Yeah. But, no, mate, it's good to have you on. And you, in terms of your work and stuff like that, what's Matt Hall do for a crust outside of distribution?
Plumbing, obviously.
Yep.
So, just work myself in a plumbing business and specialise mainly in gas work and stuff like that. So, but do all facets of plumbing. So,
Yep. So if your pipes need clearing, guys and gals, you know who to call. Yeah, Matt Hall. Matt Hall Plumbing. Matt Hall Plumbing. But
cleaning pipes.
Here we go.
I thought we weren't going to speak about last weekend, Lee.
Sorry.
I guess from that point of view, though, was that in terms of getting into the plumbing trade, was that something that was like, something that you fell into? You just wanted to take up a trade, or?
Well, I think it was really I got the opportunity to work throughout our Christmas holidays back in school, and out of that I got offered to the apprenticeship, but had to go through TAPS, which is a training group, and make sure they were happy. Well, set all the requirements and pass them. So that's pretty much why. And I didn't love school, so
yeah, fair enough. And you're just what? Have you got a crew that work under you, or you just do it yourself?
I used to, and I've gone back to myself, and I work with couple other contractors when we've got big jobs and we need to get a lot of stuff done quickly. Yep. We work together and employ each other as such, because it's a lot less stress.
Yeah, fair enough. You don't have to worry about sort of tradies, apprentices and stuff like that. They'll let you down, and we see it all the time when our installers are doing installs, and they've got their own sort of apprentices and stuff like that, and they've got. It's a 3 or 4 person job to put a series of solar panels up on your roof, and then the apprentices don't rock up, and some of the installers have got to 1 or 2 men down, and they've got to do all the work by themselves, and it's not cool, So at least you're the sort of the controller of your own destiny, so to speak, and at least that way you've whatever the result is on you, and you've got control over it. Whereas if you leave it to someone else, it's kind of hard. So yeah, but. Buckle in, mate, because the next sort of hour or so is just us sort of shooting shit about motorsport. So
not that there's been a whole lot of that to cover, unfortunately.
Well, you know what, man? Thank God for the Olympics.
Yeah.
To be honest with you,
it's been brilliant.
I love it. Awesome. I love it. Absolutely love it. I've always been an Olympic fan.
And the best part for you starts tomorrow. Track cycling starts tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah.
So you'll be right on, glued to the couch for that.
Yeah, I know. It's you know what? I'm not going to lie. I started watching I've been an Olympic fanatic since for as long as I can remember. So part of my book collection I've got in the study is all sort of programs of all the Olympics from Atlanta '96, plus books about the Olympic Games and all that sort of stuff. So I just picked up. It's being delivered. The Tokyo 2020 official program, which you can't buy anywhere else outside of Japan. So they've got the Olympic. So the Olympic movement is what the website's called, and they've got its own shop. But for the Tokyo Olympics, and it might be because of Corona, any of the merchandise or any of the things that you've got in that shop is only distributed in Japan.
Yeah, right.
So the only way that you can actually get anything outside of the country is if you just happen to search on eBay. So because all the Tokyo 2020 Olympic game programs, etc., were published last year when the Olympics were meant to be on, all the information is still relevant. The dates are all the same. It's just obviously we're in 2021 and not 2020. So I think the symbolism of the fact that it's been the first games of its kind, of any kind, where we're in a COVID and all that sort of bullshit. It's it's symbolic in a way. So my contact in Japan, Mitsu, sent me a message saying it's on its way.
Nice.
So I should be receiving it hopefully this week or something like that, and just put that into the collection.
Nice.
And then we'll get with Paris. That's in 3 years now.
3 years, isn't it?
Yeah. But no, man, I was watching all the races and stuff like that, and got the itch, and I was like, fuck. Started looking at bloody track cycling stuff again, and all that sort of stuff. So it's addictive. It really is. But you get so many life lessons even just watching it.
Yeah.
In terms of what these athletes put themselves through and the end result.
Sacrifice and the training and everything they go through to get to that level.
Yeah. I've been fortunate enough to actually, when I was in track cycling, I did a couple of international events just as an independent, the Oceania Championships, and they were held in Adelaide, which was, the first one was a massive learning experience, and the second one was great because I was so much better prepared than the first. But I actually became really good friends with some of the AIS and the Australian track sprinters, because clearly I'm built to be an endurance athlete, But to see some of the stories up close about how ruthless the Cycling Australia system is, and I'll say is because it hasn't changed. No matter how they try and sugarcoat the bullshit, it's still the same.
Yeah.
When you see the end result and you see the reaction that you get when they get a podium and a medal and all that sort of stuff, it's the adulation of actually achieving, right? But then when they talk about the sacrifice and the hard work and all that sort of stuff, most of the general public only know about 2.5% of everything else that goes on in that. So those tears that you see on the podium, more than just
happiness.
More than happiness. It's full on. But these guys make a lot of sacrifices to trying to achieve, and they actually put themselves through a lot of bloody rigmarole to get there. Yep. So it's
There's extra kudos to the athletes that are there now, because I think we'd have on for our best Olympic year ever at the moment. I think we've done Emma McKeon's obviously the best medalled Olympic athlete now as well, but she's got 11 medals all to herself. That's just gnarly. She's going to need her own jet to bring all the medals home, but I think we've got 14 or 15 golds already, which is more than we scored in terms of the whole Olympics the last 3 Olympics.
Yep.
So we've still got a week to go. So fingers crossed the guys and the girls on the track cycling can get some more. And I think we've got a couple more sailing medals to come.
Yep.
So
as of today, we're sitting 4th in the medal tally. So
we are.
That's pretty
good.
Impressive. From the bunch of athletes that we've got over there.
I honestly think the extra year off for us as a nation, I think a lot of the sporting bodies would have said, right, okay, we've got another year to get this shit right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you can see who's done their homework for that extra year in terms of preparation and stuff like that across the board. So this will be by far our best Olympics.
Yeah.
But I've already told my auntie and uncle over in Brisbane that come 2032 I'll be there.
Yeah, I've already started trying to put my feelers out as well. It won't. I think there'll be some other events held in some other states as well, but we'll definitely be on the plane to Brisbane to get the Olympics. Missed out for Sydney, but
same.
Yeah,
that was one. They still regard Sydney as the best games for a whole host of reasons, but I never thought in my lifetime we'd get it back here.
Yeah.
So this time, now that I'm old enough to appreciate it, really appreciate it. The kids will be teenagers by then, so they'll either tell daddy to piss off, not like that too much now, but or they'll actually appreciate it and for what it is. Yeah. But what else happened? We had COVID. We had that.
Yeah.
So that was the outbreak, and that was interesting to say the least.
Lockdown for a few days. Lockdown for a week.
How'd you go with homeschooling?
It was. I think I've got a few more greys, but look, when you're trying to homeschool and work at the same time, you can expect that. We can't all be, work for ourselves in the construction industry and get an extra week off of work and just chill out on the couch.
Yeah, look after the dog, scratch the dog's belly.
If you speak to my wife, she probably would say the same thing, that she had to work and homeschool.
Homeschool
well,
you. This is where the mop goes after you finish with it, Matt.
Oh man. I'll never forget, I was actually going on my way to have my COVID test done, and I was on the phone to you, and you were like, what day was it? It was...
Friday.
Was it Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Friday, and it was in the middle of the day, and I gave you a call. Hey, man, you ready for the podcast? Yeah, cool. What are you doing? Oh, I'm building my KZ. Fuck. What are you? I'm just about to get my nose picked out by some specialist in a mask. So, how did you obviously got it finished now? You showed us photos before.
Yes, I did. Yeah, it's come up really good, so I'm really looking forward to getting out in it.
They look pretty trick, man, I've got to say.
Yes.
Pretty neat. So, I love, KZs for me.
You get your jock sweat over KZ.
I do.
Yep.
I do. I honestly, I cannot understand for the life of me why they don't have a KZ racing series of some sort here. NSA. I know the expense aside.
There's not enough of them. There's not enough. It's expensive. No one wants to do it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I remember when about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a couple of KZs floating around that would go out to testing and stuff like that, the Southerns. It was a guy that was it was a Cosmic or an Esprit or something like that, but it was definitely a shifter, and this thing was gnarly. But for me, my love of shifters came from watching the supercars at the Grand Prix. That's when my love of go-karting started. I'll never forget that, 92, 93. And seeing those things haul ass down Brabham Straight, and then realising that we had Kart Mania up at Richmond, and then going to see the karts there, and thinking, hold on, I'm thinking in my head, being a naive kid, that the supercarts would look like what they were at Kartmania. I get to Kartmania and I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Maybe watch the corporate challenge, and that was more what you were driving.
Yeah. Actually, Craig Denton? Was Craig Denton involved in the corporate challenge? I reckon he was there for a while.
At some point. Yeah, I think he had something to do with it. I can't remember where and how. I think maybe because he was Karting Australia or Karting South Australia president at the time. But he listens to the podcast, so he'll text one of us and let us know.
Yeah,
but I'm sure that he was involved in it in some facet.
Yeah.
Just can't remember what it was.
They were 4-stroke motors that they had.
Yeah, they were basically just high karts.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably straight off of the track, maybe from down at Port Wakefield Road.
Yep.
And Jepp's Cross, and just pulled off and, take the governors out.
Yeah.
Let them go.
Actually, do you guys remember the old Kartmania down at Bolivar?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's corner of Port Wakefield Road and Waterloo Corner Road there.
That's where Dad used to take me to run engines in from time
yeah.
to time.
Yeah. That was the scene of one of my greatest ever crashes. Oh my God.
You're probably the reason why it was shut down then.
No, not maybe.
We're pointing the finger.
Yeah. So I'll never forget to this day. It was 1994, and it was the Adelaide Grand Prix final had just been run and won. So I was still hurt that Damien Hill didn't win the title. But it was a good mate of mine, Michael Ciravolo. It was his birthday party. And so he wanted to have it at Kartmania down at Bolivar. So we went out there, and it was fast. Like, that's the first thing I remember, because it was open track. And I'm thinking, I'm so used to what we had at, like, Richmond or whatever it was. And I was closing up to his dad, and we've gone through. Now, the circuit that they had, there was the start-finish line was this sort of left-hand kind of sweeper. And so we're coming in through the sweeper, and I've done a Lewis. And Joe's actually cut me off, and I've speared straight off into the tyre barrier. I've cleared the tyre barrier, I'm airborne, and I still remember it to this day. I can feel my elbow rubbing on the ground, and I've gone over the tyre barrier and into the pit lane, and I've landed in the pits. Signs all crooked and stuff like that. I'm like, what the fuck's just happened? It was just so quick and violent. But I came back out, and didn't really much race at Bolivar after that.
No. I don't think it was lasted long after that, so I'm still going to claim that you were the reason it's gone.
Oh man, I shit myself though. I'll never forget that. And I didn't actually go into a go-kart for a fair while after that, probably just through fear of it happening again. But yeah, that was that how it started for you? Like, sort of Bolivar or like the hire karts and stuff, or like, getting that first race into you, or you were just straight with the old man down the track?
Yeah, I think it's actually, I don't have the greatest of memories at the best of times, so I can't recall back to those days, but I do recall driving a rookie kart around dad's mate's factory for my first ever time, I reckon. So
yeah,
and loved it from then.
Have you won titles? Like, have you won championships and stuff like that? Is there something, or a title, or a series, or something where you look back on and it's like, oh man, that was great. That was something you hold on to. For me, I've never won it, so I wouldn't know. But
the one that's probably annoyed me the most is the Vicky Open back in Geelong, where I lost by a nose cone. But yeah, that's probably the worst. That's probably my most annoyed race.
Okay, why?
Because I lost by a nose cone.
But were there events leading up to it? Were you beaten on the line? Were you dominating the race? Did you come from behind? Like, can you remember? Like, what was it that? I mean, obviously to lose it, shit, especially by that much. But were there events leading up to that in terms of the race itself?
Who'd you lose it to?
It was Dave, Sarah, and I all weekend. But then someone came through, but I can't remember his name.
We've got him on a good day. Obviously, Saturday Frothy's got him too hard last night.
Definitely.
Well, what about you, man?
Which part do you want answered? The first part about
first
first drive, or the
right,
one that stings the most?
First drive, the title that you best remember,
yeah,
and the one that stings you the most.
Righto. First drive, I went to... I'm 95% sure it was at Barossa. And I went with my dad, whose workmate's son was racing. It was Jake Wigley.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so my dad worked with his dad. They said, want to give my son a drive of a go-kart. So I went up and did it. I was woeful, but then loved it as well and kept pestering Dad. So got a go-kart and hit Bolivar up and started testing until I was confident enough to race. And then we threw me in the pack when I was competitive, doing relatively competitive lap times where I wasn't going to be a burden on everybody else. Championship that sort of has stuck with me the most in terms of happiness was probably winning the Festival State Cup and the South Australian title in the same year, in one of my second years in seniors when I was driving for somebody else.
Who was that?
That was for Jeff Boyd, and I raced his PCR. I stopped driving and he said just come and drive it, and I was like, okay, cool, that'll be fun. We won near on everything that year, bar maybe like one or two race meetings, so that was a good one. And in the same year, it was probably the title that stings the most was missing out on the Nationals. We were probably the fastest kart all weekend by a solid margin. Did an axle swap and we didn't do the brake carrier up tight enough, so in the pre-final the brake carrier shifted across and was grabbing on the brake pad, so we had no bottom end and then ended up in the gravel trap. So I think I started the final 32nd and passed more go-karts in that race than were actually physically on the track, and then finished inside the top 10. So I got inside the top 10, rubbed a wheel with someone and got punted off, and then came back from about 20th or 24th or something like that back into the top 10. So yeah, that's probably the one that hurts the most, because the eventual winner came up to me on Saturday afternoon and basically said, you've got this hands down. And then that's obviously put the jinx on us, and we didn't have it hands down. So yeah,
it's always
that's
the way.
That sticks the worst.
Someone put some offers on you.
Yeah,
I wish I could share the same stories with you. I can't.
You'll get your time. You'll get your time.
Actually, you know about the trophy that we got for at Southerns at the meeting there.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a pleasant surprise. So,
I told you I'd done my sums, and there was only one way that you didn't get third place that day.
Yep.
And there had to have been a mistake somewhere, and yeah, obviously it got pointed out.
Well, before people want to know the story of that, I want to dispel the rumour of the fact that and I heard this through third party, that there was some chatter going around that I cracked the wobblies about it and not getting the trophy, and that I demanded a recount. I'll categorically say that's utter bullshit. I'm not like other individuals that like to claim trophies in a two-kart field, but just for their social media acclaim. But no, I went to the Southerns meeting, the committee meeting last month, just to introduce myself to the committee, being the pres, and just talk about some stuff that the club wanted to do. And they were talking about the issues that they were running with the Speed Hive, how they found they were having some issues with it splitting the classes up and counting the points per class rather than as first to last on track. So one of the Skinner brothers were actually created a spreadsheet, and this was due to an incident that happened to them earlier this year. So when Anthony got his podium in Adam's go-kart for the first meet of this year, Anthony actually finished 4th overall, but was given 3rd for exactly the same reason, and it actually resulted in Steve Skinner missing out on a trophy. So from that, and Steve, to his credit, actually kept quiet about it. Like, he didn't create any fuss about it. You know, it was just, okay, fair enough, shit happens. But he and his brother created a spreadsheet which actually tabulates all the results whenever they race at Southerns. So his brother turned around to Steve and said, mate, you're the only club Supermax in this field, and yet you've got 28 points. You should have won the class. How's that possible? So what they did was they actually did a count back and went through all the results, because they themselves thought that because Daniel Bowden and myself had levelled on points, that I would get the podium because of where I qualified. And I'd have convinced myself that I was fourth, and I was like, yeah, that's cool. Like, we fucked up heat 3, we didn't have the right tyres in the right heat. It's done. We go to the meeting. They were talking about the issue, and then Steve and Brett turned around and said, "Oh, by the way, here's your trophy for third. Congratulations." And I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" And then Steve, to his credit, explained his story. So, Steve Skinner, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
Yep.
And it validates your mathematics because you were adamant that it was, that we got the 1-3 that day.
Yeah.
So, that was a pleasant surprise. But again,
good job, well deserved.
Yeah, I was all right. We turned that page over about a month ago. But the thing that gets me is the trophies that I've actually got ironically, it ends up being at Southerns or Monados and stuff. For one reason or another, I've never actually been present at the podium to collect it. So every time I actually don't stay or I leave, I end up getting the trophy posthumously anyway. So
leave them all, then you can get more trophies.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't stay at all.
Exactly. But so that was interesting, but it was good at the end of the day. Now the kids actually keep the trophies now.
Yeah, that's what I do with all mine now as well. If I win one, I get them to the kids. They get more enjoyment out of it than I do.
Yeah.
I can go to the shop and buy a trophy if I want to look good, but yeah.
Well, and for me, it's not about that. It's more that if the kids get inspired by it. Like Daddy comes home with a piece of silverware. Like, I feel chuffed because I got it, but at the same token, I get more enjoyment seeing that my kids get inspired by it. And I don't expect them to take up karting or whatever, but
lies.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Do I? But and then I don't know. It's just a cool little thing, It still doesn't beat the experience that Adam had that day.
Yeah,
like seeing the kids seeing him win.
Yeah,
but it's not a bad second place.
Your turn will come. The kids will see you win eventually one day.
We'll see. But what's your take on karting as it stands in SA at the moment? So where do you see it going? Where is it on its way back up? Is it kind of declining? Is it sort of neutral? I mean, you've been around long enough to make comment on it.
I feel that karting in SA is reasonably strong at the moment. Like, everyone that's involved in it seems to be really enjoying it and getting out to as many meetings as they possibly can. I mean, to have like a tag light field of 7 at a club day, that's pretty impressive. And a lot of the junior classes are getting out, and the dads are really getting around it, so it's really great to see.
Yeah, it's one of those sports that really kind of really brings people together. Can actually brings families together too, I've found, more than other sports. I think the only one that I felt that, that everyone's really mostly encouraging would be triathlon, where fat, skinny, tall or small, male or female, it doesn't matter. You see people down at West Lakes in the summer on the weekends, and they're just cheering people on because of the endeavour.
Yeah.
And it's just a feel-good vibe. You could win and you could finish last in your class, and no one could care because they actually appreciate what it takes to actually compete.
Yeah.
Whereas with families and stuff like that, I know sometimes if the parents aren't mechanically minded, they don't really appreciate what happens behind the wheel. At the same token, it's just a good chance for the family to get together and watch people racing and see their kids or husbands or partners compete. So I reckon that's pretty cool. It's one of the big things I take out of it. And
it's not... A lot of people look at a sport like that as, it's a single driver racing against other drivers. And, a lot of people will say that it's just a single sport where, you're by yourself. But it's really a team sport. Because without the support back in the pits and mechanics and trainers and whatnot, the young kids just, they wouldn't be doing it. So it really is bigger than just yourself, I think. So
yeah. And it's a social sport too. Like, you meet so many good people and friends and stuff. Like, obviously, we would never have crossed paths if it wasn't for go-karting. Our other friends, Nick, we wouldn't know each other if we didn't have karting. So it's good social. We put the helmet on and we'll all race each other as hard as we race everybody else. But as soon as the helmets come off, we're just as likely to go and have a steak and a beer at the end of the night and laugh about what's just happened throughout the day as we are to punt each other off in turn 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Aren't we, Matt?
If anything, we'd probably give each other a little bit less room than we would another competitor.
Please tell me about the story, because there's certainly undertones on that one. By all means.
There's plenty of occasions, but there's one story in particular. There was me, Matt, Nick, and one other guy. We were all racing a class together, and we all went to face the starter. We got the green light. We got to turn one, or made it to turn one, and none of us made it out of turn one. Because someone sitting to my right here got a little bit eager and ended up all four of us in the gravel trap to the applause of the crowd that were watching.
To my credit, I did get out of the go-kart and bow to everybody that was watching, and everyone really enjoyed it. So,
how far back did you come from?
I was off the first. It was off the start. We were all there. Yeah,
that was in reverse.
Yeah, it was southern, but going reverse direction.
So we're into
the sweeper, reverse direction, and we've all gone off into the gravel trap right there, right in front of the stands.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah, I'm with you now. Jeez.
Yeah. So we all, no damage. No one was hurt. No damage. I think we all picked our go-karts up and got our dads to come and push us off again, and off we went. Had another go at it.
That's right.
I've never actually driven Southerns in that direction. How do you prefer it? That way,
I like going backwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a good track in general, but any time you get to do something different, it's fun.
Yeah.
Different is always fun.
Yeah. Now that sand trap there would have seen many a cart many a time.
Yeah. And doing it in reverse, it just changes your perspective on the track as well. Like there's some contours in the track at Bolivar that you've either gotten used to because you've driven it so much normal direction that when you flip it around, you go, well, I don't remember that being like that on the exit of that corner when you're driving at it the other way. So yeah, it's good fun.
Yeah.
Hopefully one day you'll get to drive it in reverse. It's a different challenge, that's for sure.
I'm sure. Well, I reckon they'll probably do it. I wouldn't, definitely not for Festival State Cup, but I think in September, at the end of September, when they've got their club round again, they'll probably do it in reverse. They normally try and do it at least once a year, but that's my gut feel on it too. So yeah. Speaking of Festival State Cup, it was meant to be on this weekend, but COVID changed all that. Now they're racing at the Barossa on the weekend of the 7th and the 8th of August.
Next week.
So, next week, which I know the girls will be at. We won't be. I'll be 40 by that stage. I'll be celebrating my 40th. So, old man weekend. My brother-in-law... So, my poor brother-in-law, he had his birthday. It was meant to be this weekend. That's been postponed. So, it's going to be my 40th, his 40th, then my father-in-law's birthday on the Monday. So, it's just bang, 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 like that.
Party Central.
Yeah, and then we're at Southerns on the 22nd.
Yep.
So that'll be, we will be at Southerns on the 22nd.
Big day.
It will be a big day.
That's for a Festival State Cup too?
It is, yeah. I think it's the last of the local events, and then they'll shoot off down to Gambia for the final of the Festival State Cup in November, the week before the 200.
Yep.
So, yeah. On the club front, our 100-lap race at Paraka, is the individual driver event. That's now been delayed until mid-September. It was actually meant to be scheduled on the weekend of the Festival State Cup, which was just not going to happen, mainly because of COVID and all that sort of stuff as well. And so what we've decided to do is run it on the 19th of September on a Sunday, which will be a double points round. So that means you have to drive it, mate. If you want to try and win the individual... Oh, it's either that or beat Matt Stead. He's now leading the championship now. So
why are we at Paraka? Why aren't we at Jeps Cross or something like that?
Mainly because they were able to accommodate that race length and the challenge of it. All right, so
100 laps straight up, or are we breaking?
No, it's going to be a 10-lap qualifier, and then you've got two 25-lap heats, and then a 40-lap final.
All right.
Yeah. So she's going to.
I might be able to be convinced. We'll see.
Oh, I'm sure you like a piece of plastic at the end.
Another one.
Yeah. Well, because what it will do is then that'll pretty much leave the Bend 200 at the end of November to be the final race of the season. So we had plans of going back to Jeps and we had plans of going to Richmond, but it's just with the unpredictability of everything, and we wanted to leave enough gaps so people can save up the cash to actually enter the 200. Do the 200.
Yeah.
We've had to sort of draw the straw on that one. So, yeah, unfortunately. I'm luring you in, as Simon Reichelt calls it, a sassy point score.
Yes.
All sass.
We'll see.
Yeah. So, yeah. Motorsport-wise, mate, what do you follow? You into your Formula 1 or your V8s, or are you just karting and that's it?
No. The obviously got friends from when we grew up together that are racing V8s, so I do enjoy watching the V8s. And Formula 1, that's been a ripper season this year.
Yeah,
it's just been awesome to watch that. So I've been really getting involved in that. And
who are you fan of? Really, Max Lewis?
I've always been a fan of Max ever since I first saw him. Same with Vettel and drivers like that. Like I like to look at a driver from when I first see them on track, and I make my opinion on their skill level, not not what they are off track.
Yep.
Because I don't. Yeah, that's how I approach looking at drivers and stuff like that, and really any sportsman. I don't really care what you do off track and what you like, but if you're quick on track, that's where it matters.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll jump straight into Formula 1 because, my God, we were talking it up a little bit come the studio, and no one actually foresaw what was going to happen in that race. But to be fair, we've been calling it for about, 3 or 4 race meets of the impact was going to happen?
Yeah, I think at least three or 4 races. We've mentioned that the crash is incoming. It's any day now. And, didn't they give us a good one to set it off?
It was, you know what? Crash aside, it was a cracking Grand Prix. It was a great race.
It was, yeah.
It would have been nice to have the max factor sort of thrown in there if you're for the title combatants. My piss was burning with 2 laps to go when Charles had a wobbly. But to be fair, with the engine issues that they were having in that particular race, the fact that he even finished was probably a miracle in itself. But we are talking about the British Grand Prix. So I'll quickly run through the top 10, and then we can talk in depth about the race, because I'm sure all 3 of us got differing views on the whole thing. I'd tell you what though, Biscuits is on the money. Like, he was on the ball. Like, as soon as the cut, Max had just hit the tyre barrier, and I got the message straight away.
Yeah, me too.
Old Biscotti. But so Lewis Hamilton won from Charles Leclerc, and then Valtteri Bottas was 3rd, Lando Norris was 4th, Daniel Ricciardo 5th, Carlos Sainz in 6th, Fernando Alonso 7th, Lance Stroll 8th, Esteban Ocon 9th, and Yuki Biscuits Tsunoda was in 10th. So, boys, your take on lap 1. I'll start with you, Matteo.
Well,
and you can be as honest and open as you want.
Yeah, I know, but it was an interesting accident.
Yep.
I feel that it was Lewis's fault, but I don't know. It's a very difficult one. Very difficult one to comment on.
Yeah. You, sir?
Oh yeah, like we've said, it's been building, and that's just Lewis doing desperate Lewis things, because he knows that he needs to make a pass on Max off the start. He knows that if they get to the S's, through Cops and Maggots and Beckett's, that he's probably going to lose a second there, so it has to be done sooner rather than later. And instead of being patient, because we know that he's under the pump and the pressure's building, and waiting for strategy calls to try and do it later on in the race, he's gone, I have to do it now. But this is the sort of stuff that we've been talking about, where Lewis and Mercedes haven't been put in this position before, and now that they are, and there's a bit of pressure on him, he's making childish errors. So, yeah, again, I think it's definitely more on Lewis than it is on Max. They're both probably... you can look at it both ways and say that they both are at fault. Max aggressively blocked and then half opened the door, and Lewis was up there, but Lewis missed the apex of the corner, so he was always going to make contact with Max, even if Max gave him more room. But it's just like I said, it's just the pressure on Lewis now. The only thing that I'm sort of not really agreeing with is the penalty. I think it should have been a stop and go penalty in terms of the effect that it needed to have on Lewis's race. a 10-second penalty, which can be taken at the pit stop, is not going to ruin his race. As soon as that was handed out, you basically knew that Lewis was going to get the gap back on Charles anyway and win. So I would have liked to have seen a bit more of an effort had to have been made by Lewis to come back and win the Grand Prix. I feel they were a bit light-handed on the penalty, but penalty deserved, and just glad to see that Max is okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because I partially agree with what you say, in the respect that it was a racing incident. I think they were both at fault at different points of that incident. Max largely for the build-up, Lewis, I guess, for making the contact. But put it this way, I went through frame by frame because I knew we were going to have this discussion. And I'd say, yeah, you're right. Max probably didn't defend hard enough. He weaved. Yep. Right. If it were me, I would have gone hard right and stayed right and forced Lewis to go on the outside. Instead of this bullshit crisscrossing move that they were trying to sort of break a slipstream, right? Go old school. Just go whoom, hard across and force Lewis to go out wide.
Look, if he does that though, Lewis goes around the outside and gets the position because he's got the right of way on the corner because he had more speed in the straight. So then it would have been the roles reversed and Lewis would have been on the outside and Max probably would have made contact with Lewis. So I think what Max did was right. He showed Lewis, I'm defending this corner. You're not going to make the pass here. And any person that, like they said in the broadcast, all drivers know that you don't stuff it up the inside going into that corner. Especially when you've got a driver that is clearly trying to hold you out from that position into a corner that is super it showed fast. So much later on in the race that you can make a pass there, but not when the person's blocked. Lewis passed another 3 cars in that corner. Yeah. They were all, the same fashion, but the person in front stayed to the left on entry.
And that's the thing. I look at the Leclerc, where Lewis got past on Leclerc, and this is where I think to myself, if I was Max and I would have gone hard right and held that right side of the track, it would have prompted Lewis to go wide. And he would have been in pretty much where Charles's Ferrari was. Charles couldn't make the corner. Yeah. Right. He got immediate oversteer, forced him out wide, and Lewis probably would have been on the same thing there too. By Max going out, and then trying to squeeze back in, Lewis, before he actually backs off the throttle that little bit, was actually right alongside. He's backed off the throttle because if you actually look on the footage when they're looking at the car's front on, there's dust and shit flying everywhere behind Lewis because he's in the marbles and he's in the dirt. So he's actually, when you look at the stills in his in-cart, he's actually gone hard lock right. But what he's also getting is understeer. Yeah, because
he's been on the dirt.
He's been on the dirt. So what he's had to do is to make the corner. He's already missed the apex because of the dirt. He's feathered off the throttle just that little bit. And I'm not talking because he has to, right? But what that's done is Max has just gone, I'm still going hell for leather, right? And they've just clipped the rear wheel and sent Max off into the bloody barriers.
I wouldn't say Max is still going. He had to turn in.
He had to turn in. He
was off the track.
He had to turn in. Yeah. What doesn't do Max any favours is when you look at Max's on board and he's gone out and he's looked into his mirrors and has gone whoop, straight across. So for me, it's like...
But look at all the amount of excuses everyone's trying to make for a 7-time world champion.
Exactly.
You do not do that stuff. Lap 1.
He was desperate.
Cold tyres, he was desperate.
Yeah.
And that's not the Lewis that has had the 7 world titles because he's not been challenged like this before.
Yeah. The only I think that it reminded me so much of when him and Nico had that collision in Spain 3 or 4 years ago or whatever it was. Yep. Where they remember lap
2016.
2016 Spanish Grand Prix.
Yeah, it was the same thing. He was desperate again.
Yeah, but look what Nico did. Whoa, straight across.
So he can't be. He doesn't like being challenged. Yeah. Nico has every right to move across.
Yeah, he did.
Max had every right to move across. Look, to be honest, I think tonight's going to be pretty spicy too for the Hungarian Grand Prix because we've got Max starting on the soft tyre, Lewis starting on medium, so they're going to be all over each other going into turn 1 and. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's not more of the same, to be honest.
Well, there's so many talking
roles
points.
Reversed.
Yeah,
just roles reversed.
Yeah. There's so many talking points that came out of that one race because it had such an impact on the title. Lewis was actually lucky. He got kissed on the proverbial with that red flag because Mercedes had actually found that he had a cracked rim.
Yeah.
So had the race still gone green, right, he would have been in the pits and it would have been job done. You know, he would have been...
He would have got another tyre and put on
Probably
and stuff
put it
like
on.
that, so it wouldn't have been all over Red Rover, but
he would
definitely...
have won the race.
Yeah,
By
no,
any
I don't
stretch.
think he would have won the race.
Yeah. 1.8 mil worth of damage Red Bull were claiming.
Yeah.
All right, and they were on a cost cap formula
Season.
now, on a cost cap season, and they were squealing about it. I don't know. It probably shows you where they've spent a lot of the money in terms of the development too. Because if they're squealing about that one crash, which is big,
Oh,
but I've seen
Mercedes
bigger.
were doing the same thing when they had that Bottas and George Russell crash. They said it was a $1 million crash, and they were squealing like pigs as well. So
for the San Marino race,
at Imola, yeah. So
No one seemed to make a big deal about that.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But I reckon Bottas's crash was that. I'd be curious to see what the G-force rating comparison was between that crash and Max's.
Not 51G.
51G is pretty fucking severe.
That's a lot. I say like 1.8 million's a small price to pay because that could have been a lot uglier than it was.
I got him good. He was winded when
was
he got
rattled.
that. Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Had you seen? I don't know whether you guys had looked on Facebook where I put on the video of the fan that had taken the home footage, and you got to see it in real speed how hard he hit that.
He smashes it up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. He's just gone boom, like that, and you're like, shit, that's it. You know, all over. But man, it was good to see Leclerc up there again. He drove the wheels off it, man. Leclerc and Silverstone have a thing. They really do, because he's finished in the top 5 in the last 4 Grand Prix he's raced there, 2 of which were last year.
Yeah.
But you could argue that Ferrari had come back to form again, but then you see what happened in Hungary, which we'll touch on.
Different
in depth.
conditions and stuff though, and the track probably suits Ferrari a little bit more with its quick changes of directions, whereas Hungary's not so many quick changes of direction but long changes of direction, so that probably helps Ferrari a little bit at Silverstone, but yeah, he drove a good race.
Yeah, very, very. It was a great bit of opportunism by getting in front of the incident that happened. But he had the pace to pretty much win the race, and then they had that inherent misfire that sort of was in and out, which ended up being an ECU. But it just shows that in certain tracks this year, Ferrari are going to be up there. Yeah, which is good to see,
And it shows what a talent he is.
Yeah, 100%.
Can manage a big problem and still finish with the result that he took out. It was brilliant.
Reminded me a lot of my spark plug race at Suns. I took great helmets. I just didn't have a radio to tell you. I've got a misfire. Help me, please. Yeah. Lewis claims he's inspired by his performance was inspired by the Mercedes upgrades and also his sim development. Discuss.
Sim development.
Oh, he's been spending a lot of time on the sim now, so rather than not, he used to find that pointless. But he's been in the sim even to the point where, because they were running that special weekend, he quickly went down to the factory and did some sim work between a practice session and qualifying. Yep. So, look, whatever he's got to say to help him sleep at night.
Yeah. But Toto's backed it up. Now, I know you could say, well, Toto has to, but I think even Toto's been quite surprised and maybe even taken it back to a point with the level of work that Lewis is actually starting to put in now.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I haven't seen this for 7 years, and now all of a sudden you're doing all this shit when it doesn't matter,
Yeah. Well, it still matters, because obviously it needs to get him the championship or the constructors at least. But look, if they're still spending money on the car this year, that's good. Gives us even more hope to next year. There's going to be some further challenges on the grid for them. And yeah, you know what I'm like with sim. If Lewis is using the sim as a tool, it just I can vouch for that. It's definitely a very helpful piece of machinery that they've got at their factory there. Yeah.
Well, Max was saying to get rid of the bruises or check the bruises that he had after the impact, he did a 24-hour race.
Yeah, he was part of the 24-hour Spa race, I think, with his team on iRacing Team Redline. So he knew that he would be okay with braking for Hungary, because when he was doing his 24-hour race with his team, he has, the feel of the pedal was quite the same on these home simulator rigs. So he knew that he had the strength and everything was going to be okay.
Yeah. amazing. Like, can you imagine guys like, say, Mansell or Senna or PK doing sim?
Yeah, the technology wasn't there for them back in the day, but they had much more opportunity to go testing and stuff, though. Like, they were in cars every single week, basically.
Yeah.
If it wasn't a Formula 1 car, they were off racing a Formula 3 car somewhere or doing something else, you know.
Plus they had
driving touring cars.
You're allowed to do testing as well.
Yeah.
They would literally be testing every week after a race.
Exactly.
You know, they'd be at Silverstone or they'd be at...
So now the simulators are a bit more of a useful tool.
Yeah, 100%. But what was your take on Danny Rick's race?
Where did he finish?
5th.
Look,
behind Lando.
That's good for him.
Who had the big night? You or Matt?
Yeah. Look, there's a lot has happened since then. Homeschooling. What's 3 plus 3? 6. Yeah.
33.
Yeah, exactly. Look, good for him. Got back on top of it, but it's obviously certain tracks for him that are where he can tame them. McLaren. He's back with the Hoagies again this weekend, so he's not obviously solved his problems. Thought by now he would have been more consistently fast and closer to Lando, but he's still been shown up by young Lando. So, good that he got a good result though. Get some points on the board. Yeah,
no, exactly. It's speaking of Lando, what do you reckon? You reckon he can? He's firmly entrenched in third in the title race at the moment. Do you think over the next 13 races, inclusive of tonight, he's got the ability to hold third? Given how McLaren have been over the course of the year with him in particular.
Yeah, it's on Bottas now, I suppose. He's going to be the only thing that stops Lando getting third in the championship. So Bottas has to pull his finger out, get some more consistent runs on the board, or Perez getting some consistent runs on the board for Red Bull, which doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon.
Gee, didn't he have a shocker at Silverstone, Perez?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. But yeah, Lando's good. Like, and hell, if something happens with Max and Lewis, he's a dark outsider for some picking up scraps.
Must be a thing about bright yellow helmets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's your excuse then?
Hey?
What's your excuse then?
I finished third in the last bloody race. I got 1, 2, and second in the wet. I was looking like bloody the fat Senna on a few weeks ago. Come on, man! In a Matt Hall inspired SQ.
Yeah.
Hey?
You did all right.
Yeah, come on, Toto, cut me some slack. Shit. Bloody hell. Prick. Where do you see Max as a rival to Lewis? Would you say that he would be the match, if not better than Lewis from a skill set point of view? Would you say he's been Lewis's toughest rival?
I would, and I would say in raw talent, raw speed, I think Max has the edge over Lewis.
I would tend to agree with that sentiment. I think...
Is that because you guys got Lewis blinkers, or is this actually factual?
No. I really respect Lewis as a driver, with skill, etc., etc.
Yep.
Where he's come from, how he's got there, etc.
Yep.
But I just, looking at driver,
Yep.
no bias,
Yep.
I just feel that Max really just has a slight edge over him.
Yeah, I can appreciate what Lewis has done, but he's, had a better car the whole time. So it's a lot of his wins have come easy. Like I said, you're seeing the true Hamilton this season. He's up against it. The last time that he had a challenge to win a title, he stuffed it in the wall in the pit lane. So, look, I think Max is definitely the heir to his throne.
Yep.
And he will go down as Hamilton's biggest rival.
Yeah. I mean, look, as a neutral, because I'm a fan of neither. Like, I respect Lewis and what he's achieved. I mean, to win 7 more titles, clearly you can drive.
Yeah.
And he's
car in a dud team, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, twice. But for me,
Harsh, but okay.
Yeah, harsh. Fuck.
Not
I had Harry, mate.
With spiders.
You're not even fucking spiders. Jesus. Fuck me with your last comment, you bastard.
Yeah, but that's easy.
Yeah, true. I do leave myself open, don't I? I don't know. It's hard. For me, with Max, it's both drivers have got the teams that are firmly built around each other.
Yeah.
All right. And for the most part, Mercedes have been so superior with their engineering, and yet Red Bull have got the better designer with Adrian Newey.
Yeah,
you know,
it was all
so
power
it's
plant
all
for
been
the
power
first
plant
part,
related.
yeah.
So you can't really claim apples for apples up until now. And then there's some that would argue that the FIA have given Red Bull the advantage, at least initially, by altering the aerodynamic front on the flooring, which was where Mercedes had their primary advantage, and they've been playing catch-up up to this point.
But some would argue that the FIA gave Mercedes the advantage 6 years ago when they changed the rules for the power units.
Yeah.
So, look, yeah,
Tomato.
Depends how deep you want to go into that.
Yeah.
Who he said, she said, conspiracy, this, who do they want to get the most money from? But look, they're both equally talented.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that Max has that Lewis will never have is a karting world championship. So that goes to show that Max has won on more levels as well than what Lewis has.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You can draw the debate there. Where would you? The last person that was in a team that dominated so much was obviously Shuey with Ferrari. Where would? And it's a dubious question because you're comparing different eras and that sort of thing. But would you say that the Mercedes era was more dominant than, say, the Ferrari era of, say, the early to mid 2000s?
I think Schumacher's era, he did more for his team than what Hamilton has done for his team. I think that Ferrari were still up and down, and Michael brought them through a lot of tough times.
Yeah, he really hard grafted.
And really, really put in for the team and dragged them along with his results. But that's not the same situation as now. It's been right place, right time sort of stuff, and right car at the right time.
Yep. So you really would say what you would agree then with what Nico was calling this is a generational battle between the old stager and obviously the heir apparent.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think Max has similarly done the same with Red Bull. Red Bull haven't had the best car for the last 2 years, and through Max bringing them along and just keeping the fire lit, I suppose, they've turned out to have a good challenging car. So, look, it'll be interesting to see how that transpires next year with the rule changes. But yeah, I think Michael, Max, Lewis, and there's probably other guys in there that would rate as well.
Well, here's a question for you then. Do you think Red Bull gave Danny Rick a fair go, and where would you see Red Bull with Danny Rick in the car for this year instead of Max?
I think they'd both be at the front.
I feel they definitely gave him a good go. And it seems to me that Danny Rick doesn't like too much competition within his own team, and he really struggles with it. So I feel he was always on the out in that team because Max was a bit better.
Yeah. I think he saw the writing on the wall that they were going to try and focus their attention on bringing Max through, and he didn't like playing second fiddle to Max. And I think even still in their last season together, Danny Rick outscored Max. I think even with all the DNFs and stuff, I could be wrong. But, Daniel was a really good fit for Red Bull, and I think had they made that relationship work, they would have been a force to be reckoned with for sure. They would be in a better position than they are now.
Did you know it was actually the 6th time in Max's career that he's actually retired on the first lap in a crash?
That's
for
a good stat.
Silverstone. It's not a bad stat.
Not a bad stat.
You like that one, Bruce?
I love it.
Yeah.
You've been watching too much of the Olympics.
I love Bruce. Don't get me started on Bruce. He's special. I actually think the actual best driver on the grid right now would be, if I would say the title race would be a far different story if Charles Leclerc was driving that Red Bull right now.
I would go one further and say it would be completely different if Fernando Alonso was in the Mercedes.
He was actually my next thing. The old Fernando's back.
Yeah, Fernando's still thrashed, 40, whatever he is, 40 years old, and just get a start like he did in the sprint race, and then he's driven the wheels off the Alpine at every single race meeting.
He's been brilliant.
Yeah,
he really has. Yeah, it's funny how that was early. It reminds me of early Ferrari Fernando, not jaded Ferrari McLaren Fernando.
Yeah.
But then also, every time he was actually in Renault, right, it's always brought the best out of him.
Yeah.
there's something about that team and that environment. It must be the British sense of humour or something like that. But
the British sense of humour at Renault.
Yeah.
You reckon?
Yeah.
I would have thought more along the French, the south of France.
They're based in England. They're
Just
because you've got Cyril
ties to the roots of France. I reckon he loves a bit of French.
The only thing that's French is Cyril and the colour scheme. Right? They're based in bloody England, and then 3/4 of them are Poms. But I'd say it would be. It's all ifs, buts, and maybes, though, isn't it? Yeah. We could take. I mean, I think Carlos is. Outside of a couple of minor slip-ups that have been happening of late, I think Carlos would be...
We've just solved Formula One. We get one manufacturer to build a car and give it to everybody, and then we put the drivers in there, and then we'll know who's who.
Worked the right mid-90s IndyCar.
Exactly.
half the grid out of the same bloody car. Where else were I talking about? We're done with George Russell. Where do you see George? Gorgeous George.
Mercedes, announced at the end of the summer break before Monza.
Ooh, that's very specific. Have you got some intel? Or are you just calling it?
Just a stab in the dark.
Yeah. He, I don't know, man.
Straight swap with him and Valtteri. Valtteri back to Williams, and they'll use him as like a, what have you learnt at Mercedes? Can we put that on our car to go faster? And they'll bring George to Mercedes. I could be even more off the cuff and go that they do that before the end of the season.
Wow. Shit.
I can't see them doing that.
I can't see them doing that.
If Bottas doesn't pull his finger out, I see that before the end of the season.
He's had podiums in the last three races.
I was just about to say, his form has improved.
Only because someone's crashed off in front of him.
That is true, but...
Yeah, you got to beat the winner.
And how far is he off of Lewis?
Oh, miles off this year.
So
miles off this year. Put it this way, I would have had it been 4 Grand Prix ago, I would have agreed with you. But I think Valtteri's actually started to get his shit together from about France, and that was roughly when the driver rumours started.
Too little, too late. I reckon.
Yeah.
Signed, sealed, and delivered.
Oh,
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. I actually see him replacing Kimi at Alpha.
I see Mick Schumacher replacing Kimi at Alpha.
There's another rumour going that too. Will you listen to Below the Bottom?
No,
because they who did they interview this week? The head of the
marketing
former
for HSV.
Yeah, and he was actually the topic of Oscar Piastri had come up.
Yeah,
because he does all the marketing promotions for Oscar Piastri, and they actually had said the same thing, that they thought that Kimi was pretty much done his dash.
Yeah,
and that Mick Schumacher was going to make the switch over to Alfa as like the next step up.
Oscar would go into Haas
if he wins the title.
Yeah.
So, can you imagine what Oscar would bloody give? How would you feel if you were Mazepin? You get pantsed by Piastri, and then you'll probably get pantsed by Schumacher, and you're only there because of your daddy's millions.
Well, that's half the grid, really. Look at Stroll.
Yeah, well, Lance is not too bad. Like, I've seen worse, man.
I've heard people.
I've seen worse.
You've seen worse?
Come on, well, you mean to tell me that what Pedro Diniz back in the mid-90s was better? Come on, man.
Oh, Pedro Diniz nearly won a race, didn't he?
Oh, did he? No.
Yeah, I reckon.
In Elysier. It
Yeah,
definitely wasn't.
I'll have to go back through my archives. Leave that stat with me. I'm sure he
definitely-
got Simon, he got close. You're going to message me and you're going to tell me that he got close.
You're
You're going to tell me exactly what race it was and what year it was.
I'll have my Bruce moment. I'll go back in the archives and I'll give you all the stats.
Exactly. Where's our bloody producer when we need him?
Yeah, exactly. What about Vettel with the Seb Vettel with the environmentalist stuff at the end? I thought that was pretty cool. Did you see that?
Yeah,
The images that
cleaning
come out?
up the grandstand and stuff. Like, I like that actions speak louder than words. Some other drivers in particular like to talk a big game on social media, but they'll still walk around in their Tommy Hilfiger clothing that is made by child slaves in sweatshops. But
man.
only true drivers they don't have to post about it. They just do it and get posted about.
Poor Lewis, who does not have an anatomy after dealing with Lee Harrison.
I didn't mention any names. If you want to draw conclusions, I'm sure there's other people that wear Tommy Hilfiger too.
I don't draw conclusions.
In fact, I've probably got Tommy Hilfiger on now anyway. So
I had Tommy Hilfiger yesterday.
There you go. See, so you're just as bad.
I know, I am. Oh dear. But no, it's going to be interesting to see how this whole Hungary weekend's panned out, because they'll have the mid-season break, which is what? How many weeks? 2?
4.
4. Okay.
Yeah.
And then they'll pack in 12 races in the second half of the year.
Well, yeah, the last third of the year.
Yeah.
Near
what
on one every weekend.
was the stat that Crofty was saying the other day? It was 20-something races in just over 50 weeks.
Yeah.
Which
Is a lot.
A lot of races,
Yeah,
man.
one every fortnight, basically.
What and do they announce any tracks that have replaced the ones that they've cancelled? Because there's still 13 rounds remaining.
Yeah, there's still a couple to be announced. I think the replacement for the Australian Grand Prix hasn't been announced yet. It looks like they are going to maybe do one in Qatar, is potentially a track that they might pick. Otherwise, there was some other ones in Europe that they were looking at, but I can't think of them off the top of my head, unfortunately.
I know a good race I know a new good racetrack in Kuwait that might be able to. Actually, here's the rest of the calendar. I'll tell you now. There's Belgium.
Yeah.
Belgium, Netherlands, Italy, Russia, Turkey, Japan, which doesn't clash with Bathurst now this year.
Oh, they're looking at doing an extra race in the United States.
Yeah, there's the US, Mexico, Brazil, the TBC round, which would have been Australia.
Yep.
Saudi Arabia on the 3rd and the 5th of December, and then on the 10th of December, just 2 weeks before Christmas, Abu Dhabi.
Yep.
Wow. So
just Australia's replacement to be named, which, like I said, I think because they're moving across anyway, they're looking at doing it at Qatar. So wouldn't be surprised to see that added to the list, or potentially back to Bahrain again.
Yeah, the Middle Eastern swing.
Yep.
To end off the year. Yeah. Well, mate, it's going to be an interesting championship. I think for the sake of the championship, the fact that they've whittled it down to 7 points and single-digit figures for both constructors and drivers was awesome.
Yeah,
I think it sets it up for the second half of the year to be an absolute ripper, because I think there's going to be more of what we saw at Silverstone in the second half of the year for sure.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if it happened at the Netherlands? Lewis wouldn't get out alive.
No, I forgot about that. They're going back to Zandvoort with their new changes that they've done to the track there, so that's going to be an interesting race, and Max will have a strong home crowd behind him for that one. So.
Oh man, you know what? Mercedes will get bodyguards for Lewis.
Yeah, they might need it.
Yeah,
100%. Can you imagine 100,000 drunk Dutch people? Jesus.
Yeah.
If we think Austria was pretty cool.
After Lewis's blood.
Yeah, I've seen him in fine form in Abu Dhabi, and it's just they make a mess.
Yeah. What about Viet Supercars? The calendar's taken a bit of a hammering.
Yeah, I was looking forward to catching up with Todd in 2 weeks' time on the radio show to preview Willowbank and Ipswich, but that's not going to happen now. They've changed it up to Winton, and
Yeah, it's COVID's just ravaged the series again. It's a shame because some really good events that have missed out. And it's obviously going to mean that they've delayed Bathurst first time since the early 2000s that it's been run in November.
Yep.
So they ran 3 races in November in the past, 99, 2000 and 2001. So they were the 3 3 races in November, and it hasn't been run since. It's always been that second week of October. So yeah, it should be, hopefully by that stage, you know what, I still think they'll run without a crowd or very, very limited numbers. Yeah. Sydney's COVID situation is just ridiculous at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, they're averaging triple figures every day. You know, it's just in terms of COVID cases, it's nuts. Really nuts.
That's what happens when everyone does the wrong thing.
Yeah. Oh, look, fingers crossed that they can do it, because that race has to have, I mean, the race is great as it is. You know, but it also thrives on having, 50, 60,000 people there on that day, littered around the track as well, without a shadow of a doubt. So, yeah.
Fingers crossed we can get the fans back to the track.
Yeah.
It just sucks seeing, Formula One events going off with 100,000 people in the grandstand and, living life how they are and jumping from country to country, and we're struggling to get across borders. So, look, hopefully we can get our shit together soon and bring it back to the norm-ish.
Yeah. But outside of that, I think there's a little report. There's no MotoGP at the moment. That'll actually start very soon. They'll come out of their mid-season break, probably by the time we get to the radio show again. That'll be back. We'll review Hungary in more detail then as well.
Yeah.
And anything else that you wanted? Oh, what grinds your gears, mate?
Look, I will say when they make unnecessary changes to racing circuits. I was watching qualifying for Hungary the other night, or maybe practice for Hungary, and then in between free practice 1 and free practice 2, they showed the 1986 Hungarian Grand Prix, and it was still using the old layout. So yeah, and it's such a much better layout. Loved it. And
I can't remember the track change. What have they done?
So just instead of when they come out of turn 2 and they just swing hard right to go up the hill, there's sort of like another S bend there, and then they would come right and go up the hill. Yeah, just so much more challenging and slowed the cars down. They did the same thing with Belgium, Spa. They, instead of having a sharp left-right chicane before going up to Eau Rouge, they've made it flat out, and we've seen the accidents there as well today from the 24-hour of Spa.
The one the biscuits put up.
Yeah, it's massive.
Man. Yeah.
So look, I don't know why fixed track, change tracks that aren't broken, change the vehicles that race there if the things are broken. So it's the same they're doing with Abu Dhabi. They're putting all these other things in because there's no overtaking. Well, it's not because of the cars. It's not because of the track. There's plenty of overtaking there in other cars. Maybe have a look at the cars that are racing on the track instead. So
Yeah. Well, and that's why the new... Well, what was your take on the new F1 car there, Matt? What do you think of it? The new one?
Looked alright.
Spoken like a true technical genius. Looked alright.
Yeah, it looked alright. Hopefully it goes well.
That's what he said when he spanned for me on the go-kart track. What did it look like? Oh, it looked alright.
Yeah. What did the SQ look like to you, mate?
Oh, it looked alright.
Yeah, it looked alright.
It was a bit under average.
That's a golf game.
Yeah, exactly. But no, you're right, mate. It's look, it could be worse. It could be over policing like they did when Senna died in '94 and they stuck a chicane on the entry into Eau Rouge made by bloody witches' hats.
Yeah,
I mean that was just going way overkill.
Yeah.
But yeah, the problem is not the track per se; it's the car.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you could imagine having a race like Lewis and Max for the whole hour and a half. Like, it's virtually impossible because you got tyre wear and all that sort of stuff. Could you imagine having battles like that all the way through the field?
Well, we probably wouldn't see many first lap crashes like that, though. So,
well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's even, the V8 racing in certain circumstances over the last couple of years has been sort of highlighted by aero and the impact that has. And then you compare it to, say, some of the racing that you see in the TCR when there's next to no aero, right? And the racing is just more wheel-to-wheel and hardcore. So you're actually in the midst of doing your research for the new V8 supercar that'll come out in the radio show in the next fortnight.
Definitely started that. Definitely.
You've got a hard act to follow after your expose on the F1 car in the last show, mate. That was top drawer, top shelf.
It'll happen. Should be sweet. So if you want to know more about Gen 3, make sure you're listening to the radio show in a fortnight's time. Yeah.
But I reckon that's it for tonight. I think. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Hall.
That is more than okay.
Yeah.
How do you feel now? You still shitting bricks or
tired?
Tired? Yeah,
very tired now.
It takes it out of you. A lot of concentration.
It is, especially getting notes like this.
I suppose I'm not going to lie, but maybe the last comment I made was purely because I didn't really listen to the question you were asking. And I just had to throw something out there because I was half asleep.
Which one?
So I do apologise.
Okay, so
this is all due to too many
minutes last night. All right. No, the actual last question was about the SQ, and he was only being nice. Yes. So, which it's actually not that bad a go-kart, I'll be honest. But the step before that was what your thoughts were on the new F1 car, the one that was released with all the aero whiz-bangery and all that sort of stuff.
Pretty good.
We got so much more out of that.
It was worthwhile revisiting, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'm glad we came back to that.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Oh, well. But no, mate, it's been a blast. It's always hard when you've got COVIDs and lockdowns and all that sort of stuff, and all the series have been put on hold. So, but appreciate you coming in, man. And for everyone else at home, 87.6 FM. And we will be back in a fortnight's time from 7 till 9. And Lee's the DJ next week. So if you question the music preferences, blame him.
Wow.
Yep.
Shivers.
Yep, it's on you, man.
So I've got to do all this research for Gen 3, and you want me to do a playlist too.
Mate, I need my vocal cords looked
Wow.
after. I've got to just sort of sit there and manhandle the mic.
All right.
I'll let you do some of the legwork for that one. No.
All right, sounds good. I'll get a short list together.
Yeah, but all right, guys, we'll see you soon. I think we'll call it a night. We'll race home and watch the race.
Too easy. Ciao.
All right, see you guys.
See ya.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.